The Everest restaurant occupied the entire 60th floor of Manhattan's tallest building. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the glittering skyline like a painting worth more than most people would earn in a lifetime. This was not a place for ordinary people. This was where power lived. The air carried notes of aged bourbon and wealth so old it had no need to announce itself. At table 12, the most secluded spot in the restaurant, four men in custom suits worth more than a teacher's annual salary leaned over documents spread across white linen. Their faces illuminated by the soft amber glow of Art Deco lamps. The digital clock on Michael Westbrook's Patek Philippe watch silently ticked to 10:45 p.m. April 15, 2025. 15 minutes remained before the investment window would close forever. Michael Westbrook, 48, sat with his back perfectly straight, a habit from his Navy SEAL days that 15 years of corporate success had failed to soften. His salt and pepper hair was cropped short, his jawline still sharp enough to cast shadows under the restaurant's dim lighting. The scar above his right eyebrow told stories his lips never would. The men across from him, William Hayes and Takashi Nakamura, represented American old money and Japanese new money respectively. Both had flown in specifically for this dinner, for this signature. $100 million waited to change hands, to transform Westbrook Energy from a successful innovator into an industry titan. Richard Coleman Michaels, Research and Development Director, beamed as he sketched the formula on a linen napkin, an almost sacrilegious act in a restaurant where the napkins alone cost $30 each. The Coleman-Mitchell catalyst represents a paradigm shift in green hydrogen production. Coleman said, his voice carrying the practiced humility of a man who had abandoned humility years ago. By manipulating the electron spin state in the platinum-iridium lattice, we achieve quantum tunneling that reduces energy costs by 60%. Michael nodded, his stormy eyes calculating more than just profit margins. This technology represented his legacy, the culmination of everything he had built since leaving the military. After losing his son 5 years ago, the company had become his only family. "Show them the core equation, Richard," Michael said, his deep voice commanding attention without raising in volume. "The part that matters." Coleman nodded, uncapping an absurdly expensive fountain pen. His hand moved across the napkin with practiced precision, leaving behind a string of symbols and numbers. The mathematical representation of a fortune. "It boils down to maximizing the probability of quantum tunneling for proton transfer," Coleman explained. "This is the equation governing catalytic efficiency. It's what secures our patent." Hayes and Nakamura nodded with the practiced reverence of men who dealt in dollars, not quantum mechanics. Michael, however, studied the formula with fierce intensity. He had built this company from nothing. He understood every variable. "And the quantum tunneling probability function," Michael pressed, tapping the equation, "it's stable across all temperature and pressure ranges we've modeled." "Absolutely, ironclad." Coleman smiled with the certainty of a man standing on what he believed was unshakable ground. "That's the secret sauce. Mitchell's proprietary work with my refinements." None of the men noticed Emma Carter, the waitress, silently refilling their water glasses. In her black uniform, she was practically invisible, trained to move through spaces occupied by powerful men without disturbing the air they breathed. Another piece of restaurant furniture. Until she wasn't. Emma's hand holding the crystal water pitcher trembled almost imperceptibly. Her eyes, tired from an 8-hour shift that followed a morning shift at the diner across town, fixed on the last term of the equation. A term she knew intimately. A term she had spent 2 years of her life deriving. A term that was catastrophically wrong. The world around her fell away. The clinking of silverware against fine china, the murmur of expensive conversations, the soft jazz from hidden speakers, all vanished. She was back in a dusty university lab, the smell of ozone and day-old coffee filling her nostrils, standing before a whiteboard covered in the elegant mathematics of quantum mechanics. In that moment, Emma Carter was no longer a 35-year-old single mother working 3 jobs to stay afloat. She was Dr. Emma Carter, the brilliant researcher whose work on catalytic efficiency had been on track to revolutionize green energy. Before everything fell apart. Before Professor Warren Mitchell, her mentor, had stolen her research and erased her name. Before the academic board had sided with the tenured professor over the graduate student. Before she had discovered the fatal flaw in the equation that rendered the entire process unstable under high-pressure conditions. A flaw that could turn a green energy plant into a bomb. Emma blinked, returning to the present. The contract portfolio sat open before Michael Westbrook. His Mont Blanc pen hovered above the signature line, $100 million about to change hands, hundreds of lives about to be put at risk. She had spent 5 years disappearing, becoming invisible. It was safer that way. Safer for her, safer for Lucy, her 7-year-old daughter who even now was struggling with asthma, their inadequate insurance barely covered. Speaking up had cost Emma everything once before, but her father had taught her something before his suspicious accident at his own energy laboratory. Something that ran deeper than fear. Integrity isn't what you do when everyone's watching, David Carter had told his daughter. It's what you do when no one will ever know. Michael Westbrook uncapped his pen. The soft click echoed in Emma's ears like a gunshot. She moved before she could second-guess herself. Leaning close to Westbrook, her lips inches from his ear, she whispered 4 words that would change everything. That formula will kill. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then Michael turned, truly seeing Emma for the first time. Their eyes met, hers tired but resolute. His narrowed with surprise, then something sharper. Assessment. The look of a man who had learned to evaluate threats in environments where miscalculations meant death. Excuse me. His voice was quiet, controlled. Dangerous. Coleman laughed, the uncomfortable sound of a man watching his triumph slip away. Mr. Westbrook, please. The waitstaff here is excellent, but I doubt they're qualified to comment on advanced quantum chemistry. Emma held Michael's gaze. 5 years of fear and exhaustion had ground her down, but not out. Something of the woman she had been remained. That formula, she repeated, her voice steady despite the rapid drumming of her heart, contains a critical error in the electron density variable. Under high-pressure conditions, it creates an unstable byproduct. Explosive. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. Nakamura whispered something to his assistant. The mood at the table transformed from celebration to tension in seconds. Coleman's face flushed red. This is absurd. Mr. Westbrook, we should continue in private. Michael raised his hand, slightly silencing Coleman without looking away from Emma. 20 years in the military and 15 building a company in the cutthroat energy sector had taught him to recognize the sound of truth even when it came from unexpected sources. How would you know this? He asked Emma, his voice neither dismissive nor convinced, just questioning. Emma straightened her shoulders slightly, summoning the ghost of the woman she once was. Because I wrote the original equation. Before Professor Mitchell stole it. Before I found the flaw. A heavy silence descended on table 12. Hayes and Nakamura exchanged glances. Coleman's face had gone from red to white. Michael Westbrook closed the contract portfolio. His face revealed nothing as he stood buttoning his suit jacket in a single fluid motion. Gentlemen, we'll need to postpone the signing. Something has come to my attention that requires verification. His tone made it clear this was not a suggestion. Richard, have the car brought around. We'll continue this discussion at the office. He turned to Emma, his expression unreadable. You'll join us, Ms. Carter, Emma Carter. Ms. Carter, I believe we have much to discuss. Coleman stepped forward, practically vibrating with indignation. Michael, this is completely inappropriate. This woman is clearly trying to sabotage. Richard? Michael's voice could have frozen flame. Car, now. As Coleman stormed off, Michael addressed the investors. Mr. Hayes, Mr. Nakamura, I apologize for the interruption. My assistant will reschedule at your convenience. Both men nodded, curiosity battling with annoyance on their faces. This was not how business was done at this level, but both were experienced enough to recognize when circumstances demanded flexibility. Once they were alone, Michael turned back to Emma. You realize what you've just done? It wasn't a question. Emma nodded anyway. I do. And you did it knowing the potential consequences to yourself. Another nod. Michael studied her face for a long moment, searching for something only he knew. Follow me, Ms. Carter. 10 minutes later, Emma found herself in a private room at the back of the restaurant, typically reserved for celebrities and politicians who preferred their meals without the accompaniment of camera phones. Michael had dismissed the maitre d' with a generous tip and a request for privacy. Now he stood by the window, city lights reflecting in his eyes as he studied Emma with the careful assessment of a man accustomed to calculating risk. You have 10 minutes to convince me you're not wasting my time, he said. Start with who you really are. Emma took a deep breath. 5 years ago, I was a PhD candidate at Caltech specializing in catalytic chemistry for sustainable energy applications. My dissertation focused on maximizing efficiency in hydrogen production through modified platinum catalyst structures. Under Professor Warren Mitchell, Michael said, showing he'd made the connection. Emma nodded. Mitchell was my advisor. Richard Coleman was his postdoc at the time. Continue. 2 weeks before I was scheduled to defend my dissertation, I discovered a critical flaw in my calculations. Under certain pressure conditions, the catalyst would create an unstable byproduct. I reported it to Mitchell immediately. Emma's hands clenched involuntarily. He dismissed my concerns, called it pre-defense anxiety. And then, Michael prompted, his face betraying nothing. 2 weeks later, my research was published in the Journal of American Chemical Society. Mitchell and Coleman were listed as primary authors. My name was nowhere to be found. Michael's eyes narrowed slightly. Academic theft happens. Unfortunate, but not uncommon. What makes this my problem tonight? Because they published the original flawed research, Emma said, her voice gaining strength. When I tried to speak up about both the theft and the danger, Mitchell used his influence to discredit me. The academic board sided with him. My career was over before it began. That still doesn't explain your certainty about the flaw. Emma met his gaze steadily. After they published, I continued working on it privately. I confirmed the error through simulation. Under high-pressure industrial conditions, the catalyst creates a compound that becomes violently unstable. Michael moved away from the window, seating himself across from her. Let me understand this clearly. You're claiming that the technology my company is about to invest $100 million in has a catastrophic flaw that could explode? Yes, and no one else has identified this issue in 5 years of development. Emma leaned forward. The instability only manifests under specific conditions. Conditions that wouldn't be present in laboratory testing, but would exist in an industrial implementation. Convenient, Michael observed, but his tone had shifted slightly. He was listening, truly listening. The science is solid, Emma insisted. I can prove it mathematically. The error is in the electron density function. Anyone with advanced training in quantum chemistry would see it if they were looking for it. And you believe Coleman and Mitchell know about this flaw? Emma hesitated, then nodded slowly. I believe they must. It's too fundamental to have gone unnoticed during development. Michael studied her for another long moment. You mentioned your father earlier. Who was he? The question caught Emma off guard. David Carter. He was a chemical engineer at National Energy Laboratories. He died in an accident when I was in graduate school. What kind of accident? A laboratory explosion, officially ruled as human error. Emma's voice grew quieter. He was working on similar catalytic processes. Something flickered across Michael's face. Recognition, perhaps. The Feynman-Carter principle, he said slowly. Emma couldn't hide her surprise. You know it? I've built an energy company from the ground up, Ms. Carter. I make it my business to know the fundamental research in my field. Michael leaned back. Your father's work on electron transfer mechanisms was groundbreaking. It was, Emma agreed, a hint of pride breaking through her exhaustion. And you're suggesting there's a connection between your father's accident and this situation? Emma met his gaze steadily. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm simply telling you that the formula Richard Coleman wrote on that napkin is fundamentally flawed in a way that could kill people under industrial conditions. Michael nodded slowly, reaching a decision. I'd like you to come to Westbrook Energy headquarters tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Bring whatever documentation you have regarding this flaw. I can't just... You'll be compensated for your time, Michael interrupted. $5,000 for a consultation, regardless of the outcome. Emma stared at him. $5,000 would cover Lucy's medical bills for months. Why are you doing this? She asked. You don't know me. You have no reason to believe me over your own research director. Michael stood buttoning his jacket again. Ms. Carter, in my former profession, I learned that the most dangerous threats often come from unexpected directions. Ignoring warnings because they don't fit my preconceptions would have gotten me killed many times over. He pulled a business card from his pocket and placed it on the table. 9 a.m. Ask for me at reception. He turned to leave, then paused. And Ms. Carter, if you're lying to me, I'll know, and you won't enjoy the consequences. With that, he was gone, leaving Emmy alone in the private dining room with a business card worth potentially $5,000 and a decision that could cost her everything. Again, the night air bit into Emma's skin as she waited for the bus that would take her to her apartment in Queens. Her uniform offered little protection against the April chill, but the cold barely registered. Her mind raced with calculations, risk assessments, and fears. Coming forward once had cost her everything. Coming forward again could cost what little she had left. But staying silent could cost lives. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A text from Mrs. Rodriguez, her elderly neighbor, who watched Lucy when Emma worked nights. Lucy had another attack. Use the emergency inhaler. She's sleeping now. Doctor says she needs the stronger medication. Medication their insurance wouldn't cover. Medication that cost $800 a month out of pocket. Emma closed her eyes, the weight of her decision pressing down on her shoulders. $5,000 would make a difference. Would it be enough to justify the risk? The bus arrived, its doors hissing open. Emma boarded, swiping her Metro card and finding a seat near the back. As the bus pulled away from the curb, she stared out at the city lights, at the towering buildings where men like Michael Westbrook made decisions that affected thousands of lives. What would her father have done? The question answered itself. David Carter had taught her that science existed to improve lives, not endanger them. He had taught her that integrity wasn't negotiable. Emma pulled out her phone, typing a message to Mrs. Rodriguez that she would be home soon, then opened her email. Somewhere in her cloud storage, encrypted and buried, were her original research notes, the proof she would need tomorrow. As the bus rumbled through the late-night streets of New York, Emma Carter made her decision. She would go to Westbrook Energy tomorrow. She would tell her story again, this time to someone who might actually listen. And maybe, just maybe, she could prevent history from repeating itself. In his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park, Michael Westbrook poured himself 2 fingers of 30-year-old scotch and moved to the window. The city spread out beneath him, a testament to human ambition and ingenuity. Somewhere out there, Emma Carter was returning to a life he could barely imagine. Michael sipped his scotch, letting the complex flavors roll across his tongue. He'd built Westbrook Energy from nothing after leaving the SEALs, transforming his military discipline and strategic mind into business acumen. 15 years of calculated risks, of seeing opportunities where others saw only obstacles. $100 million was the largest investment in the company's history. The Coleman-Mitchell catalyst would revolutionize green hydrogen production, positioning Westbrook Energy at the forefront of the sustainable energy revolution. If it worked as promised. Michael pulled out his phone, dialing a secure number from memory. "It's me," he said when the call connected. "I need everything you can find on Emma Carter, formerly of Caltech. Academic record, publications, current employment, financial situation, everything." He listened to the response, then added, "Also David Carter, chemical engineer. National Energy Laboratories. Died in a lab accident approximately 10 years ago. I want the official report in anything unofficial you can dig up." Another pause. "Yes, by morning. And Jackson, keep this between us." Michael ended the call, returning his attention to the city below. In his mind's eye, he saw another city, another time. Baghdad 15 years earlier. His SEAL team had received intelligence about a weapons cache. Everything pointed to a routine operation. But the local asset, a young boy who cleaned the base, had whispered a warning: wrong building. Michael had trusted his instincts and altered the operation. They discovered the actual cache 2 buildings over, along with an ambush team waiting for them at the original location. Sometimes warnings came from unexpected sources. Richard Coleman arrived at the penthouse 30 minutes later, his face flushed with barely contained rage. "Michael, what the hell was that?" he demanded as soon as the door closed behind him. "You let some waitress derail a $100 million deal because she spouted technical jargon." Michael regarded his R&D director calmly. "Sit down, Richard. We need to call Hayes and Nakamura right now. Apologize for the misunderstanding and reschedule the signing for tomorrow, before they start questioning the technology." "Sit down." Coleman stopped, finally registering Michael's tone. He sat stiffly on the edge of the leather sofa. Michael remained standing, using height to maintain dominance, a habit from interrogation training that still served him well in the corporate world. "Tell me about Emma Carter." Coleman blinked, caught off guard. "Who?" "The waitress, Emma Carter, formerly of Caltech, worked under Professor Mitchell during the initial development of the catalyst." Coleman's expression shifted too quickly for most to notice. But Michael wasn't most people. He'd been trained to read micro-expressions, to detect the smallest tells that indicated deception. "I vaguely remember her, one of Mitchell's graduate students. Unremarkable." "Lie number 1, Michael noted mentally. "She claims there's a critical flaw in the formula, something about electron density variables creating unstable byproducts under pressure." Coleman's laugh was just a fraction too loud, too dismissive. "That's absurd. The formula has been tested extensively. Mitchell's reputation is unimpeachable." "Lie number 2. She's coming to the office tomorrow to explain her concerns. I'd like you to be there." "Michael, this is a waste of time. We have actual work to do, a deal to save." "This isn't a request, Richard." Michael set his glass down. 9 a.m., my office. Coleman stood adjusting his tie in a nervous gesture. Fine, I'll be there to debunk whatever nonsense she's selling. But Michael, you need to understand what's happening here. This woman clearly has some personal vendetta against Mitchell, maybe against me by extension. She's trying to sabotage this deal. Perhaps, Michael conceded. But if there's even a 1% chance she's right, we need to know. The catalyst will be implemented in facilities near populated areas. We can't afford a mistake. There is no mistake, Coleman insisted. Mitchell and I have been developing this technology for 5 years. It's solid. Michael nodded, seemingly accepting the explanation. Then you have nothing to worry about. 9 a.m. After Coleman left, Michael returned to the window. The interaction had confirmed his suspicions. Coleman was hiding something. The question was what and how far he would go to protect it. Michael pulled out his phone again, this time opening a photo album. He scrolled to a picture of a young man with his eyes and his late wife's smile standing proud in a Stanford University sweatshirt. James Michael Westbrook, 20 years old in the photo, dead at 21 in a car accident 5 years ago. What would you think of your old man now, Jimmy? Michael whispered to the image. Still trying to change the world, one energy solution at a time. The photo offered no answer. It never did. Michael closed the album and pulled up his email. A preliminary background report on Emma Carter had already arrived. Former academic star, multiple publications in prestigious journals. Then a sudden disappearance from academia 5 years ago, coinciding with Mitchell and Coleman's breakthrough publication. Currently working 3 jobs: waitress at Everest morning shift at a diner in Queens weekend, receptionist at a dental office. Single mother to a 7-year-old daughter with chronic asthma. Buried in student debt, no criminal record, not even a parking ticket. Not the profile of a corporate saboteur. Michael opened the attached photo, studying Emma's face. Beyond the exhaustion, he saw something in her eyes that resonated with him. Determination. The look of someone who had been knocked down repeatedly, but refused to stay down. For the first time in 5 years, Michael felt something stir within him. A recognition of a kindred spirit. Someone else who had lost everything, but still got up each morning and fought on. 9 a.m. couldn't come soon enough. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Emma's small Queens apartment, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. Emma stood at the kitchen counter, preparing Lucy's breakfast, while her daughter sat at the table coloring a picture of what appeared to be a scientist in a lab coat. "That's very good, sweetie," Emma said, placing a bowl of oatmeal with sliced bananas in front of Lucy. "Who is that?" "It's you, Mommy," Lucy explained, her voice small but determined. "When you were a scientist before I was born." Emma's hand froze midway to smoothing Lucy's hair. "How did you know Mommy was a scientist?" "I found your old books, the ones in the box under your bed. They have your name on them." Emma smiled softly, masking the pang in her chest. Children noticed everything. "Eat your breakfast, scientist in training. Mrs. Rodriguez will be here soon to take you to school." "Why can't you take me today?" Lucy asked, spooning oatmeal into her mouth. "Mommy has a special meeting. Remember I told you about it last night? It might help us get better medicine for your breathing." Lucy nodded seriously. "Okay, I'll be good for Mrs. Rodriguez." Emma kissed the top of her daughter's head, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo and innocence. Everything she did for this little person who had become her whole world, including facing Michael Westbrook and Richard Coleman today. She glanced at the clock. 7:30, 90 minutes until the meeting that could change everything. Again. As if summoned by her thoughts, Emma's phone chimed with a text message from an unknown number. "Car will pick you up at 8:15, may I help you?" Emma stared at the message. How had Michael Westbrook gotten her number? Then again, a man who could rent out the 60th floor of a Manhattan skyscraper probably had ways of finding information most people couldn't access. She texted back a simple acknowledgement, then returned to helping Lucy prepare for school. The weight of the day's potential consequences pressed against her chest, making each breath a conscious effort. Whatever happened at Westbrook Energy today, there would be no going back. Emma Carter was about to step into the light after 5 years in the shadows. The question was whether she would emerge stronger or be burned to ashes once again. Exactly at 8:15, a sleek black Audi sedan pulled up in front of Emma's apartment building. The driver, a professional-looking woman in a dark suit, opened the door for Emma without comment. The interior smelled of leather and subtle cologne, a world away from the buses and subways Emma typically navigated. As the car glided through morning traffic toward Manhattan, Emma reviewed the notes on her tablet one final time. She had spent half the night retrieving and organizing her original research, the evidence of both the formula's potential and its fatal flaw. Would it be enough? Would anyone even listen this time? The Westbrook Energy headquarters occupied a modern glass tower in Midtown, its facade covered in cutting-edge solar panels that generated a significant portion of the building's power needs. The lobby featured a massive sculpture of the Earth suspended in midair by hidden magnetic technology slowly rotating above a reflection pool. Emma approached the reception desk, suddenly acutely aware of her simple blouse and slacks purchased from a discount store and carefully maintained. In this environment of wealth and power, she felt like an imposter. Emma Carter to see Michael Westbrook. She said, her voice steadier than she felt. I have an appointment. The receptionist checked her screen, then nodded. Yes, Miss Carter. Mr. Westbrook is expecting you. Jeremy will escort you to the executive floor. A young man in a tailored suit appeared at her elbow, smiling professionally. This way, Miss Carter. The elevator ride to the 58th floor was swift and silent. Emma used the time to center herself to summon the scientist. She had once been the woman who had stood confidently before academic review boards and international conferences. Jeremy led her through a series of sleek corridors to a set of double doors marked simply M. Westbrook, CEO. He knocked once, then opened the door, gesturing for Emma to enter. The office beyond was surprisingly understated for a man of Westbrook's wealth and position. Certainly luxurious, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city, but lacking the ostentatious displays of success Emma had expected. The furniture was modern but comfortable, the art on the walls original but not showy. Michael Westbrook stood as she entered, looking even more imposing in the morning light than he had the previous evening. His tailored navy suit fit perfectly across shoulders that still carried the muscle memory of military service. His expression remained unreadable as he gestured to a chair across from his desk. Ms. Carter, thank you for coming. Emma nodded, taking the offered seat and placing her tablet on the desk. Thank you for listening, Mr. Westbrook. Michael, please. Then I'm Emma. A ghost of a smile touched his lips, gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Emma, before we begin, there's someone else joining us. The door opened again, and Richard Coleman strode in, his expression a carefully constructed mask of professional curiosity. But Emma caught the flash of recognition and alarm in his eyes before he could hide it. Dr. Coleman, Michael said, I believe you remember Emma Carter from Caltech. Coleman recovered quickly, extending his hand with a practiced smile. Vaguely. One of Mitchell's students. Correct. Nice to see you again, Ms. Carter. Emma shook his hand briefly, noting how his smile never reached his eyes. Dr. Coleman, it's been 5 years. Has it? He laughed lightly. Time flies in this industry. Michael gestured for Coleman to sit, then returned to his own chair. Emma has raised concerns about the stability of the catalyst under industrial conditions. I thought it would be productive for the three of us to discuss these issues directly. Coleman nodded, spreading his hands in a gesture of openness. Of course, though I must say I'm surprised to hear concerns from someone who hasn't been involved with the project in years. That's the thing about fundamental flaws in quantum chemistry, Emma replied, her voice finding its professional edge. They don't go away just because time passes. Michael leaned forward slightly. Emma, why don't you explain your concerns specifically? Emma nodded, activating her tablet and sending a file to the large screen on the wall. A complex formula appeared identical to what Coleman had written on the napkin the night before. This is the Coleman-Mitchell catalyst formula as published. She began falling into the rhythm of scientific presentation that had once been second nature. The breakthrough centers on manipulating electron spin states to lower the energy threshold for hydrogen separation. She highlighted a section of the equation. The issue is here in the electron density variable. Under laboratory conditions with controlled pressure, everything works as expected. But in an industrial setting with sustained high pressure and temperature fluctuations, Emma tapped her tablet again, and a simulation appeared on screen, showing molecular structures breaking down and reforming in an increasingly unstable pattern. The catalyst creates an unstable byproduct that accumulates over time, eventually reaching critical mass, and the simulation ended with a flash of light. The implication was clear. Coleman laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. This is absurd. We've tested the catalyst under every conceivable condition. Have you tested it under sustained pressure of 300 atmospheres with temperature fluctuations of plus or minus 20 degrees over a 72-hour period? Emma challenged. Because those are exactly the conditions your industrial implementation would face. Coleman's smile faltered for just a moment. Our testing protocols are proprietary, but I can assure you they're comprehensive. Emma turned to Michael, who had been watching the exchange with intense focus. The simulation is based on established quantum principles. Anyone with advanced training in the field can verify my calculations. Which is why I've asked someone to do exactly that, Michael said quietly. Both Emma and Coleman turned to him in surprise. Dr. Sarah Jensen from MIT will be joining us shortly, Michael continued. She's one of the leading experts in catalytic chemistry with no connection to either party. She's reviewing both the published formula and Emma's concerns independently. Coleman's face tightened. Michael, this is completely unnecessary. We've had the formula reviewed by multiple independent labs. Then one more review won't hurt, Michael replied, his tone making it clearer the matter was settled. A subtle tension filled the room as they waited. Emma felt a flicker of hope. For the first time, someone in a position of power was taking her concerns seriously, was actually listening. The door opened and a woman in her 60s entered. Dr. Sarah Jensen had the confident bearing of someone who had spent decades at the top of her field, her silver hair cut in a practical bob, her eyes sharp behind designer glasses. Michael, she greeted, then nodded to the others. Dr. Coleman, Ms. Carter. Michael stood to shake her hand. Thank you for coming on such short notice, Sarah. Have you had a chance to review the materials? I have. She moved to the screen, bringing up her own set of calculations. And I have to say, this is quite interesting. Coleman leaned forward. Interesting how? Dr. Jensen adjusted her glasses. The formula as published is elegant, truly innovative work on quantum tunneling effects. She paused, looking directly at Emma. But Ms. Carter's concerns appear to be valid. Under specific industrial conditions, the electron density function does indeed create an unstable byproduct. The blood drained from Coleman's face. That's impossible. We've tested. Your testing parameters would not have captured this specific interaction, Dr. Jensen interrupted. It requires conditions that only emerge in a full-scale industrial implementation over extended periods. She turned to Michael. In my professional opinion, implementing this catalyst as currently formulated would create a significant safety risk, one that could indeed lead to catastrophic failure. The silence that followed was deafening. Michael's eyes moved from Dr. Jensen to Coleman, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. Richard, Michael prompted, his voice dangerously quiet. Would you care to explain? Coleman straightened his tie, a nervous habit that betrayed his discomfort. This is the first I'm hearing of any issue. Perhaps there's a misunderstanding in the calculations. There's no misunderstanding, Dr. Jensen stated firmly. The mathematics are quite clear. Emma watched Coleman, seeing the calculation happening behind his eyes. The weighing of options, the assessment of risk. If there is an issue, Coleman said carefully, it would have originated in Mitchell's initial work. I merely refined the application. Throwing Mitchell under the bus already, Richard? Michael asked, his voice cold. That seems premature. Coleman stood abruptly. I need to contact Professor Mitchell immediately. We need to review these findings together before jumping to conclusions. Michael nodded slowly. By all means, use the conference room down the hall. My assistant will show you. After Coleman left, Dr. Jensen excused herself as well, leaving Emma alone with Michael. The tension in the room shifted, no less intense but different in quality. You believe me, Emma said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Michael studied her for a long moment. I took your concerns seriously enough to investigate. There's a difference. Most wouldn't have bothered. I'm not most people. Michael stood, moving to the window. Neither are you, it seems. Emma remained silent, uncertain where the conversation was heading. Your father, Michael said after a moment. David Carter. I knew of his work before you mentioned him. His principles on electron transfer mechanics helped shape some of our early technology. He would have been honored to hear that. Michael turned to face her. His accident at National Energy Laboratories, you said it was officially ruled as human error. Yes, but you don't believe that. Emma hesitated. I don't know what to believe. The official report was incomplete. By the time I tried to investigate, further records had been sealed or lost. Michael nodded as if confirming something to himself. 5 years ago, when you discovered the flaw in your research, what exactly did Mitchell say when you brought it to his attention? Emma closed her eyes, briefly remembering. He said I was overreacting, that the calculations were sound, that I was experiencing pre-defense anxiety and should focus on preparing for my presentation. And 2 weeks later, he and Coleman published the research as their own. Yes, without your name. Without my name, Emma confirmed, and without addressing the flaw. Michael returned to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. Lisa, please ask Dr. Jensen to return. A moment later, Dr. Jensen re-entered the office. Sarah, hypothetically speaking, if someone wanted to create a situation where a competitor's technology failed catastrophically, would this formula serve that purpose? Dr. Jensen considered the question. Hypothetically, yes. The failure wouldn't occur immediately. It would take months of operation before the byproduct reached critical levels. By then, the implementing company would have invested significantly in the technology, and the failure would appear to be an implementation error rather than a design flaw. Most likely, yes. Michael nodded grimly. Thank you, Sarah. That will be all for now. After she left, Michael turned back to Emma. One last question. 5 years ago, were you aware of any connection between Mitchell and Helios Energy? The question caught Emma off guard. Helios Victor Zhao's company. The same. Emma thought back. Mitchell consulted for several energy companies. I don't recall Helios specifically, but it's possible. Michael's expression darkened. I see. A knock at the door interrupted them. Michael's assistant entered, her expression concerned. Sir, Dr. Coleman has left the building. Security says he received a phone call and immediately departed saying it was a family emergency. Michael's jaw tightened. Find out who called him and get me everything we have on Project Phoenix. The assistant nodded and withdrew quickly. Project Phoenix? Emma asked. Michael met her gaze, his eyes now revealing a calculation she couldn't quite follow. It seems we may be dealing with something more complex than academic theft, Emma. He stood, decision made. I'd like to hire you as a consultant, effective immediately. We need to understand exactly what's happening with this catalyst, and you're the only person who truly understands both its potential and its flaws. Emma blinked, caught completely off guard. I'm a waitress, Mr. Westbrook. You're a brilliant scientist who happens to be working as a waitress, Michael corrected. And right now, you may be the only person who can prevent a disaster. Why would you trust me? You barely know me. Michael's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Because in my experience, Ms. Carter, the people who speak up when they have everything to lose and nothing to gain are the ones worth listening to. He extended his hand. Will you help us fix this? Emma looked at his offered hand, then up to his face. In his eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected. Not just determination or calculation, but a flash of something more personal. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding. For the first time in 5 years, someone was actually seeing her. Not the waitress, not the struggling single mother, but the scientist she had once been. The woman she might be again. Emma took his hand. Yes, I'll help. Neither of them could know it then. But in that handshake, in that moment of connection between two people who had lost everything and refused to break the course of both their lives had just irrevocably changed. And somewhere in the city, Richard Coleman was making a panicked phone call to the man who might be responsible for it all. The Westbrook Energy Research Facility occupied 3 floors of the corporate headquarters, a gleaming testament to human ingenuity and ambition. Unlike the executive floor with its understated elegance, the labs hummed with activity and purpose. White-coated scientists moved between workstations with the focused intensity of people aware they were changing the world one equation at a time. Emma Carter stood at the entrance, momentarily overwhelmed. 5 years had passed since she'd set foot in a proper research facility. 5 years of serving drinks instead of solving equations. 5 years of watching her dreams collect dust while she collected tips. Intimidating? Michael asked, appearing silently at her side. Emma straightened her shoulders. No, just familiar. In a way that hurts. Michael nodded, understanding more than she realized. The team is waiting in the main conference room. Fair warning, they're skeptical. Convincing Coleman's hand-picked scientists won't be easy. I didn't expect it to be. They walked together through the facility, drawing curious glances from researchers who recognized their CEO, but not the unfamiliar woman at his side. Emma felt the weight of their stares, the unasked questions. Who was she? What was she doing here? By what right did she walk beside Michael Westbrook? The conference room fell silent as they entered. 8 people sat around a polished table, tablets and notebooks open before them. Emma recognized the type, immediately brilliant minds with equally sizable egos accustomed to being the smartest people in any room. Everyone, this is Dr. Emma Carter, Michael announced, deliberately using her academic title. She's identified a critical flaw in the Coleman-Mitchell catalyst that requires our immediate attention. A man at the far end of the table scoffed audibly. With all due respect, Mr. Westbrook Richard has been unreachable all morning, and now you're bringing in an outsider to critique his work. This is highly irregular. Dr. Patel, Michael replied, his voice carrying the quiet authority of a man accustomed to being obeyed. Irregularity is preferable to catastrophe. Dr. Carter will explain her concerns, and you will all listen. Then you'll test her hypotheses using the most rigorous methods available. He gestured for Emma to take the lead. For a moment, Emma froze. Doubt crashed over her like a wave. Who was she to stand before these accomplished scientists, a failed academic, a waitress, a single mother barely keeping her head above water? Then she remembered Lucy's drawing that morning. Her daughter still saw her as a scientist. Perhaps it was time she saw herself that way again. Emma stepped forward, connecting her tablet to the room's display system. The formula appeared on the large screen, identical to what Coleman had presented the previous night. The Coleman-Mitchell catalyst represents a genuine breakthrough in electron manipulation for hydrogen production. She began, her voice finding its professional rhythm. However, there's a critical error in the electron density function that creates an unstable byproduct under specific conditions. She walked them through her analysis with methodical precision, highlighting the mathematical inconsistencies, predicting the failure points, and demonstrating the potential catastrophic outcome. Years of academic training came flooding back, and for those 20 minutes, Emma Carter was not a waitress, but a scientist at the top of her field. When she finished, the room remained silent. Emma could almost hear the calculations happening behind 8 pairs of skeptical eyes. Dr. Patel was the first to speak. Your analysis is intriguing, but Richard Coleman has a sterling reputation. What you're suggesting would mean that he either made a fundamental error or deliberately implemented a flawed design. I'm not speculating on motivations, Emma replied. I'm showing you the math. The equations don't lie. We'll need to verify independently, another scientist said, already typing on her tablet. Of course, Emma nodded. That's exactly what should happen. Michael, who had remained silent throughout Emma's presentation, now stepped forward. You have 24 hours to run preliminary tests on Dr. Carter's hypothesis. If her concerns prove valid, we move to phase 2. If not, we proceed with the original implementation. As the team dispersed to begin testing, Michael gestured for Emma to follow him. That went better than expected. They haven't accepted anything yet. No, but they're testing. That's a start. He led her to a smaller office adjacent to the main lab. This will be your workspace while you're consulting with us. You'll have full access to our computational resources. Emma looked around the space, momentarily speechless. The computer setup alone cost more than she earned in a year. I still need to pick up Lucy from school, she said, practical concerns breaking through the surreal moment. My assistant has arranged for a car service to be available to you. Michael handed her a security badge. This gives you full access to the building, including after hours. Emma stared at the badge, her name and photo already printed on it. How long had Michael been planning this? Why are you doing all this? She asked. You could have just canceled the deal and moved on. Michael considered her question, his expression impossible to read. Because if what you're suggesting is true, it's not just about one deal. It's about a deliberate attempt to sabotage my company, and I need to understand why. Before Emma could respond, Michael's phone vibrated. He checked the screen, his expression darkening. I need to handle something. Get settled in. The team will update you on their testing progress. With that, he was gone, leaving Emma alone in an office worth more than everything she owned. She sank into the ergonomic chair, the reality of her situation finally hitting her. 24 hours ago, she had been pouring water for billionaires. Now she was working alongside them, potentially saving lives. Her phone chimed with a text message. Mrs. Rodriguez confirming she could pick up Lucy from school. Emma replied with her thanks, adding that she'd be home for dinner, but might need help again tomorrow. Another text followed immediately from the unknown number she now recognized as Michael's. Your consultation fee has been transferred to your account. Additional compensation pending project completion. Emma checked her bank account, eyes widening at the balance. $5,000 as promised. Enough for Lucy's medication with some left over. A small piece of security in a life that had known little of it for the past 5 years. She turned to the computer, fingers hovering over the keyboard. It was time to get to work. Time to prove she was still the scientist she had once been. Time to prevent history from repeating itself. In his private office, Michael Westbrook studied the file his security team had just delivered. Project Phoenix, as it turned out, wasn't just a code name for a Westbrook energy initiative. It was also the name of a classified operation at Helios Energy, Victor Zhao's company, and Westbrook's chief competitor. The file contained intercepted communications between Richard Coleman, Professor Warren Mitchell, and Victor Zhao dating back 3 years. The evidence was circumstantial but damning. Coleman had been feeding information to Zhao while simultaneously pushing for the implementation of the flawed catalyst at Westbrook. Michael's jaw tightened, the pieces fell into place. The catalyst would fail catastrophically once implemented at scale. Westbrook Energy would face lawsuits, regulatory scrutiny, and a collapsing stock price. Meanwhile, Helios would step in with their superior technology, capturing the market and potentially buying Westbrook's assets for pennies on the dollar. It wasn't just industrial espionage, it was sabotage on a scale that could have cost lives. His phone rang the screen showing a familiar name. Jackson, his head of security. "Tell me," Michael answered without preamble. "Coleman boarded a private jet to Switzerland an hour ago," Jackson reported. "Mitchell is scheduled to present at a conference in Tokyo next week, but he's gone dark. No credit card activity, no phone signals." "They're running," Michael said more to himself than to Jackson. "There's more," Jackson continued. "I followed up on David Carter's accident at National Energy Laboratories. The official report cites human error, but I found something interesting. 3 weeks before the incident, Carter filed a whistleblower complaint about safety violations. The complaint was dismissed by the safety board chairman. Who was the chairman? A visiting consultant, Professor Warren Mitchell. Michael closed his eyes briefly, the final piece of the puzzle falling into place. And Carter's accident happened in which division? Catalytic energy research. They were testing a new hydrogen production method. History repeating itself, Michael murmured. Keep digging, Jackson. I want everything. And I mean everything. After ending the call, Michael stood at his window, staring out at the city skyline without really seeing it. Instead, he saw patterns, connections, implications, a deliberate attempt to sabotage his company using flawed technology that would endanger lives. The same technology that may have killed Emma's father when he tried to speak up. And Emma herself, who had lost everything by trying to prevent it from happening again. Michael's reflection stared back at him from the window glass, the face of a man who had built an empire from nothing after losing everything that truly mattered. The face of a man who understood all too well what it meant to stand alone against powerful forces. His phone chimed with a notification. The lab team's preliminary results were coming in. Initial tests supported Emma's hypothesis. The catalyst did indeed create an unstable byproduct under specific conditions. She was right, which meant everything else might be right too. Michael made a decision. Turning from the window, he picked up his phone and dialed the one person who might understand what he was about to do. "Sarah, it's Michael Westbrook. I need your help with something delicate." In the research lab, Emma worked through complex simulations, refining her analysis of the catalyst's failure modes. The familiar rhythm of scientific inquiry settled around her like a forgotten favorite sweater, comfortable despite the years of separation. Dr. Jennifer Choi, the quantum chemistry specialist on Michael's team, approached Emma's workstation with barely concealed surprise. "Your model is accurate," she admitted, gesturing to Emma's simulation. "We've run 3 independent tests and they all confirm the instability under industrial conditions." Emma nodded, relief washing over her. "Thank you for verifying." "What I don't understand is how Coleman missed this," Choi continued. "It's basic quantum mechanics once you know what to look for." "He didn't miss it," Emma said quietly. "Neither did Mitchell." Understanding dawned in Choi's eyes. "You think they knew?" Before Emma could respond, her phone vibrated with an incoming call from the car service Michael had arranged. The driver was outside Lucy's school, but there was a problem. Lucy was having an asthma attack, and the school nurse wanted Emma there immediately. "I have to go," Emma said, gathering her things. "My daughter." "Go," Choi urged. "We'll continue the verification." 20 minutes later, Emma burst through the doors of her daughter's elementary school, heart pounding. The school nurse met her in the hallway, her expression reassuringly calm. "She's stable," the nurse explained, leading Emma to the small infirmary. "The rescue inhaler helped, but she'll need her nebulizer treatment tonight." Lucy sat on an exam table, her face pale, but her eyes brightening when she saw her mother. "Mommy, I told Nurse Martinez I was okay, but she called you anyway." Emma embraced her daughter, feeling the slight wheeze in Lucy's breathing. "Thank you for being so brave. We're going home now, okay?" Outside the school, the black sedan waited, the driver standing respectfully by the passenger door. Emma hesitated, unused to such luxury, especially with Lucy in tow. "Mrs. Carter," the driver asked. "Mr. Westbrook instructed me to take you wherever you need to go." Lucy's eyes widened. "Is this our car, Mommy?" "Just for today, sweetheart," Emma explained, helping Lucy into the back seat. "Mr. Westbrook is Mommy's new boss. He's being very nice to us." "Like a prince in the stories?" Lucy asked, running her small hand over the leather upholstery in wonder. Emma smiled despite herself. Not exactly. He's just a businessman who needs mommy's help. The driver took them home to their modest apartment in Queens. As they approached the building, Emma noticed another black sedan parked outside. Her stomach tightened with apprehension until the passenger window lowered, revealing Michael Westbrook's face. "What are you doing here?" she asked as he stepped out of the vehicle. "We need to talk," he replied, then noticed Lucy half hidden behind Emma's leg. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You must be Lucy. Your mother has told me about you." Lucy studied Michael with the direct curiosity only children can get away with. "Are you really Mommy's new boss?" A ghost of a smile touched Michael's lips. "I am, and I'm very lucky to have her help." Lucy nodded seriously. "Mommy's super smart. She used to be a scientist before she was a mommy." "She still is a scientist," Michael replied. "Being your mother and being a scientist aren't mutually exclusive." Emma felt a lump form in her throat at the simple validation. "Lucy needs her medication," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can this wait? I'll come up if that's all right. What I have to discuss can't wait, and it concerns both of you." Something in his tone sent a chill through Emma. She nodded, leading them into the building. Their apartment was clean but cramped, the furniture well-worn, the decor sparse but thoughtful. Emma felt a flash of self-consciousness as Michael entered his tailored suit and commanding presence, seeming to fill the small space. "Lucy, why don't you get your nebulizer ready while I talk to Mr. Westbrook?" Emma suggested. Once Lucy had disappeared into her bedroom, Emma turned to Michael. "What's going on?" Michael's expression was grim. "Coleman has fled the country. Mitchell has gone dark. The lab tests confirm your analysis. The catalyst would fail catastrophically under industrial conditions." Emma sank onto the sofa. "So they did know." "It appears so." Michael remained standing, his posture revealing his military background. "There's more. Jackson, my head of security, has been investigating your father's accident." Emma's head snapped up. "My father, why?" "Because patterns matter." Michael's voice softened slightly. "Mitchell was the safety board chairman who dismissed your father's whistleblower complaint 3 weeks before the accident that killed him." The blood drained from Emma's face. "What?" "Your father reported safety violations in the Catalytic Research Division, the same division that was testing new hydrogen production methods. Mitchell buried the complaint. 3 weeks later, there was an accident." Emma's hands began to shake. "Are you saying Mitchell was responsible for my father's death?" "I'm saying it's a possibility we need to investigate." Michael finally sat down across from her. "Emma, I believe Coleman and Mitchell were working with Victor Zhao of Helios Energy to sabotage Westbrook. The flawed catalyst was part of that plan. But why tell me this now? Why come here?" Michael leaned forward, his expression intensely serious. "Because as of 30 minutes ago, Coleman contacted a journalist at the New York Times with a story claiming that you're a disgruntled former student trying to sabotage Mitchell's work out of revenge. They're moving to discredit you before you can expose them." Emma's stomach dropped. "They can't. I have evidence." "Evidence can be manipulated. Narratives can be controlled, especially when people like Mitchell have decades of respected publications behind them." Michael's eyes held hers. "But more importantly, I'm concerned about your safety. Both of you." As if on cue, Michael's phone chimed. He checked the screen, his expression darkening further. "Someone just accessed the National Energy Laboratories archive. They were looking for your father's accident report and your address history." "Who would—" Emma started, then understanding dawned. "You think we're in danger?" "I think we can't afford to assume you're not." Michael stood again, decision made. "Pack bags for yourself and Lucy. Enough for a few days. You're coming with me." "What? No, I can't just leave. Lucy has school. I have work." "Emma." Michael's voice was gentle but firm. "If I'm right about Mitchell's involvement in your father's death, and if he's desperate enough to think you might expose him, he won't hesitate to act. I won't risk a repeat of history." The severity of the situation washed over Emma in waves. If Michael was right, the men who had stolen her research, ruined her career, and possibly killed her father were now targeting her directly. And Lucy, they knew about Lucy. "Mommy," Lucy's small voice came from the bedroom doorway. She stood clutching her nebulizer mask, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "Is everything okay?" Emma forced a smile. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. But Mr. Westbrook has invited us to stay somewhere special for a few days while Mommy helps him with an important project. Would you like that?" Lucy's face lit up. "Like a vacation." "Something like that," Emma agreed, meeting Michael's eyes over her daughter's head. "Go pack your favorite things. Okay, not too much, just what's important." As Lucy scampered back to her room, Emma turned to Michael. Where exactly are you taking us? Somewhere safe. He hesitated, then added, somewhere I haven't taken anyone in 5 years. 30 minutes later, they were in Michael's private helicopter, soaring above the congested streets of New York City. Lucy pressed her face against the window in wonder, her earlier asthma attack seemingly forgotten in the excitement of her first helicopter ride. Emma sat rigidly beside Michael, her mind racing with implications and fears. This is insane, she muttered low enough that Lucy couldn't hear over the rotors. 48 hours ago, I was serving you water. Now we're running for our lives. Not running, Michael corrected. Strategically relocating while we gather evidence. Semantics. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Military habit. Words matter. The helicopter banked east, following the coastline of Long Island before turning north toward Connecticut. Below them, the landscape transformed from urban sprawl to increasingly wooded areas and larger estates. They landed on a private helipad adjacent to a modern stone and glass house nestled into a hillside surrounded by acres of forest. The property was secluded, secure, and jaw-droppingly beautiful in an understated way. Welcome to my home, Michael said, as they disembarked, the rotors slowing above them. Lucy's eyes were wide as saucers. You live in a castle. Not quite a castle, Michael replied, something warming in his expression as he regarded the child. But it is rather large for one person. Emma took in the property with growing discomfort. Michael, we can't impose like this. There must be alternatives. There are, he agreed, leading them toward the house. None of them as secure, none of them as private. Inside the house revealed itself to be a study in tasteful minimalism. Soaring windows captured forest views, while the decor relied on natural materials and neutral colors. Despite its size, it felt surprisingly warm, more sanctuary than showpiece. Jackson, Michael's security chief, met them in the foyer. A former military man like his boss, he had the watchful eyes and composed demeanor of someone accustomed to assessing threats. Perimeter is secure, he reported. Guest rooms are prepared as requested. Michael nodded his thanks. Emma, Jackson will show you and Lucy to your rooms. There's a private wing for guests with everything you should need. Once you're settled, we'll talk strategy. As Jackson led them upstairs, Emma caught glimpses of the house. Despite its obvious luxury, it felt surprisingly lived in. Not the showpiece mansion she might have expected from a billionaire, but an actual home. The guest wing contained 2 connecting bedrooms, a shared bathroom, and a small sitting area. Lucy immediately claimed the bedroom with forest views, exclaiming over the window seat, perfect for reading. Mr. Westbrook asked me to inform you that dinner will be at 7, Jackson said. There's an intercom system if you need anything. The house is fully secured, but please don't venture beyond the gardens without escort. After he left, Emma sank onto the edge of the bed, the reality of her situation crashing down around her. How had her life transformed so completely in less than 48 hours, from struggling waitress to what endangered whistleblower, corporate consultant, woman on the run? Lucy appeared in the doorway between their rooms, clutching the stuffed otter that went everywhere with her. Mommy, are we in trouble? Emma forced a reassuring smile. No, sweetheart. We're helping Mr. Westbrook with something important. Sometimes when you do important things, you need to be careful. Because bad people might try to stop you, Lucy asked with the directness of childhood. Emma's breath caught. What makes you say that? That's what happens in stories, Lucy explained, climbing onto the bed beside her mother. The heroes have to be brave because bad people want to stop them from doing the right thing. Emma wrapped an arm around her daughter, struck by the simple wisdom. Yes, sometimes that's how it works, but we'll be fine because we're being careful. And because Mr. Westbrook is helping us, Lucy added with certainty. He has kind eyes even though he doesn't smile much. Emma was saved from responding by a knock at the door. A woman in her 60s with a practical gray bob and sharp, intelligent eyes stood in the hallway. Ms. Carter, I'm Sarah Jensen. We met briefly at Westbrook Energy this morning. Emma recognized the quantum chemistry expert Michael had brought in to verify her findings. Dr. Jensen, yes. I didn't expect to see you here. Michael asked me to join you. He thought you might appreciate another scientific mind as you prepare your case. Sarah's expression softened as she noticed Lucy. And you must be the young lady I've heard about. I'm Dr. Jensen, but you can call me Sarah. Lucy studied her with interest. Are you a scientist like my mom? I am. I've been a scientist for over 40 years. Wow. Lucy's eyes widened. That's even longer than Mommy's been alive. Sarah laughed, a warm, genuine sound. Indeed it is. Would you like to see something cool? I brought some scientific demonstrations that might interest a curious young person such as yourself. As Sarah led an excited Lucy back to her room, Emma felt a wave of gratitude toward Michael. He hadn't just offered them physical protection, he'd thought to provide intellectual companionship and distraction for both of them. At 7 o'clock, Emma and Lucy followed Sarah to the dining room, a warm space with a wall of windows overlooking the forest. Michael was already there, standing at the head of the table looking slightly less formal in dark slacks and a cashmere sweater, instead of his usual suit. "I hope the accommodations are acceptable," he said as they entered. "They're wonderful," Lucy answered before Emma could speak. "I have a window seat in my room and Dr. Sarah showed me how to make crystals grow." A small smile touched Michael's lips, the most genuine expression Emma had yet seen from him. "I'm glad to hear it." Dinner was served by a private chef who had prepared a meal that somehow accommodated everyone's preferences, including Lucy's picky eating habits. The conversation remained light throughout the meal, focusing on safe topics while Lucy was present. After dinner, Sarah offered to help Lucy set up her nebulizer treatment and read her a bedtime story, giving Emma and Michael a chance to talk privately. They moved to Michael's study, a book-lined room with comfortable leather chairs and a view of the moonlit forest. A fire crackled in the stone fireplace, casting warm light across the space. "Your home is beautiful," Emma said, accepting the seat he offered, "though I still think this is excessive." "Perhaps," Michael conceded, pouring 2 glasses of scotch and offering her one. "But I've learned that preparing for worst-case scenarios is rarely a waste of resources." Emma accepted the drink, taking a small sip. The liquor was smooth and complex, probably worth more than she made in a day. "So what's the plan?" "We can't hide out here forever." "No, we can't." Michael sat across from her firelight, casting shadows across his face. "Tomorrow we build our case. Sarah has agreed to help compile the scientific evidence. Jackson is gathering information on Mitchell and Coleman's connections to Helios Energy. And then we take everything to the authorities. The FBI has jurisdiction over corporate espionage and sabotage." Emma set her glass down. "You make it sound simple." "It's not." Michael's expression was grim. "Mitchell and Coleman have resources, connections, credibility. This won't be easy." "Nothing worth doing ever is," Emma murmured, echoing her father's favorite saying. Michael studied her for a moment. "Tell me about your father." The request caught her off guard. "Why?" "Because understanding who he was helps me understand who you are." Michael's gaze was steady. "And because his story may be more connected to all this than we initially thought." Emma looked into the fire memories washing over her. David Carter, brilliant chemical engineer, terrible dancer, amazing father. She smiled softly. "He used to say that science was just another way of telling the truth about the world." "He sounds like a good man." "The best," Emma's voice caught. "After my mother died when I was 12, it was just us. He worked so hard to give me opportunities to encourage my love of science. When I got the scholarship to Caltech, he was so proud. And when he died, I was devastated, lost." Emma's fingers tightened around her glass. "The official report said he made a mistake, miscalculated something basic. But my father didn't make those kinds of mistakes. You never believed it was an accident." "I couldn't. It didn't make sense." Emma looked up at Michael. "But I had no proof, no way to challenge the findings. And then I was busy with my own research, my own life." Michael nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Until Mitchell stole your work and you saw the same pattern beginning again." "Yes." Emma took another sip of scotch, letting the warmth spread through her. "Now you think Mitchell might have been responsible for my father's death. That he buried safety concerns that could have prevented the accident." "The evidence points that way," Michael confirmed. "Jackson is still investigating, but the timeline is suspicious at minimum. And now Mitchell and Coleman were planning to do the same thing at scale with the flawed catalyst." Emma's voice hardened. "How many people might have died if that facility had been built?" Michael didn't answer directly. Instead, he reached into his desk drawer and withdrew an old silver pocket watch, sliding it across the table to her. "What's this?" she asked, picking it up carefully. "It belonged to my father. He carried it through 2 tours in the war. Said it helped him find his way home when everything else failed." Michael's voice carried the weight of memory. "After he died, I took it with me to every deployment, every mission." Emma opened the watch, noting the inscription inside, "Time reveals truth." "Why are you showing me this?" Michael met her gaze. "Because sometimes we need to be reminded that truth doesn't operate on our schedule. It emerges in its own time, often when we've almost given up hope of finding it." Emma closed the watch, gently returning it to him. "That's a poetic way of telling me to be patient." The ghost of a smile touched his lips. I'm not known for poetry. No, I imagine not. Emma studied him across the firelight. Thank you for everything you're doing. Don't thank me yet, Michael replied, his expression turning serious once more. This is just beginning. Tomorrow will be difficult. We need to build an airtight case and we need to do it quickly. Because they're moving against us. Yes. Michael stood moving to the window and looking out at the darkness beyond. Mitchell has too much to lose. His reputation, his freedom, if we can prove criminal negligence in your father's death. He won't go down without a fight. Emma joined him at the window, their reflections overlapping in the glass. Then we'd better make sure we win. For a moment, they stood in silence, two wounded souls united by circumstance and a shared determination to expose the truth, whatever the cost. Outside, the moon cast silver light across the forest, revealing shapes and shadows that had been hidden in darkness. Just as they would do with the wrong formula that had nearly cost so many lives. Dawn broke over Michael Westbrook's estate, painting the forest in hues of gold and amber. Emma stood at the window of her guest room, watching the morning light filter through ancient trees. She had barely slept, her mind racing with calculations and memories of her father. 5 years of hiding, of swallowing the truth, and now finally the reckoning was at hand. A soft knock at the connecting door announced Lucy, still in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed otter. Mommy, are we going home today? Emma knelt to her daughter's level. Not just yet, sweetheart. Mr. Westbrook and I still have important work to do. Lucy nodded, accepting this explanation with the resilience only children possess. I like it here anyway. The trees have so many birds. Dr. Sarah said she'd show me how to identify them after breakfast. Emma smiled, grateful for Sarah Jensen's kindness. That sounds wonderful. Let's get dressed and find some breakfast. They found Michael in the kitchen, dressed in a casual sweater and slacks that somehow still managed to look perfectly tailored. He stood at the island counter reviewing documents on a tablet while sipping black coffee. Despite the early hour, his posture suggested he had been awake and working for hours. Good morning, he greeted them, setting aside his tablet. Lucy, I understand you're interested in birds. I had something brought over from the city this morning. He indicated a package on the counter. Lucy approached cautiously, then broke into a delighted smile as she unwrapped a pair of child-sized binoculars and a field guide to North American birds. For me, really? Her eyes widened in wonder. Really, Michael confirmed. The eastern side of the property has a bird sanctuary. Dr. Jensen knows all the best spots. Emma met Michael's eyes over her daughter's head, silently conveying her gratitude. This small kindness revealed a side of Michael Westbrook the business world never saw a glimpse of the father he had once been. After breakfast, Sarah arrived to take Lucy birdwatching, leaving Emma and Michael to begin the serious work of the day. Jackson was already waiting in Michael's home office with stacks of documents and multiple laptops. Status report, Michael said without preamble. Jackson nodded, all business. Coleman remains in Switzerland, still unreachable. Mitchell has resurfaced in Boston, claiming a family emergency. He's scheduled a press conference for tomorrow morning. About what? Emma asked. He hasn't specified, but given the timing, Jackson left the implication hanging. He's going to try to get ahead of the story, Michael concluded. Discredit us before we can present our evidence. We've also confirmed Mitchell's presence at National Energy Laboratories during your father's accident. Jackson continued, sliding a folder toward Emma. He was there as a visiting consultant, specifically overseeing the catalytic research division where your father worked. Emma opened the folder with trembling hands, seeing her father's personnel photo clipped to the top document. David Carter smiled at her across time, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners just as she remembered. I found your father's original safety complaint, Jackson said, his tone softening. It specifically mentioned unstable catalytic reactions under high-pressure conditions, exactly the flaw you identified in the Coleman-Mitchell formula. Emma's breath caught. He saw it years before I did. Mitchell buried the complaint, citing insufficient evidence, Jackson confirmed. 3 weeks later, there was an equipment malfunction that resulted in your father's death. Michael watched Emma carefully. Are you all right? Emma closed the folder, her jaw set with determination. I will be, when we finish this. The next few hours were a flurry of activity. Sarah returned from birdwatching with Lucy and joined the effort, bringing her scientific expertise to strengthen the technical aspects of their case. Jackson compiled evidence of Coleman's communications with Helios Energy, including email exchanges revealing a coordinated effort to sabotage Westbrook's implementation of the catalyst. Look at this, Jackson said, displaying an email thread on the main screen. 3 months ago, Coleman wrote to Zhao, once we implement the technology and the inevitable failure occurs, their stock will plummet. Your acquisition team should be ready to move immediately. And Zhao's response, Michael asked, his expression darkening. Mitchell assures me the catalyst flaw is undetectable in standard testing procedures. Have the legal team prepare documentation for WE asset acquisition at 30% current valuation. Emma stared at the screen, the cold calculation of it all hitting her like a physical blow. They weren't just stealing research. They were planning to build a death trap and then profit from the aftermath. And Mitchell was the architect, Michael said grimly. The same pattern as with your father. Emma focused on what she knew best, the science. She meticulously documented the flaws in the Coleman-Mitchell catalyst, the potential catastrophic outcomes, and the evidence that both men had known about these flaws for years. She created simulations showing exactly how the catalyst would fail under industrial conditions. By mid-afternoon, they had compiled a comprehensive case file that connected all the dots from David Carter's safety complaints and subsequent death through Mitchell's theft of Emma's research to the deliberate implementation of flawed technology at Westbrook Energy in coordination with Victor Zhao at Helios. This is solid, Sarah confirmed after reviewing the complete file. The scientific evidence alone is damning. Combined with the communication records, it's overwhelming. Michael nodded, studying the timeline they had created on a digital whiteboard. We're still missing one crucial element, direct evidence that Mitchell knew about the flaw and proceeded anyway. Emma stared at the timeline, a memory nagging at her. Wait, there might be something. 3 pairs of eyes turned to her. When I first discovered the flaw, I documented everything. Lab notes, simulations, calculations, and an official report to Mitchell. I submitted it all in hard copy and digital format. Mitchell would have destroyed those records, Jackson said. Yes, but I kept backups, Emma explained, excitement building. I was paranoid enough to store everything in multiple locations. One copy went to my personal cloud storage, which I still have access to. Another went on an external hard drive that I kept in my apartment. Where is it now? Michael asked. In a fireproof security box under my bed, Emma admitted with a small smile. Old habits. Michael was already reaching for his phone. Jackson sent a team to retrieve it immediately. There's more, Emma continued. I recorded my meeting with Mitchell when I presented my findings. California is a 2-party consent state for recordings, so I told him I was recording for my own notes. He didn't object. Michael's eyes widened slightly. You have a recording of Mitchell dismissing safety concerns about the catalyst? If it's still on that hard drive, yes. For the first time since she'd met him, Michael Westbrook's face broke into a genuine smile. Emma Carter, you may have just saved us all. 2 hours later, Jackson returned with Emma's security box. Inside was the external hard drive, still in working condition, despite 5 years of neglect. They gathered around Michael's desk as Emma connected it to a laptop, navigating through folders of research data. Here it is, she said, opening a video file. The screen showed a younger Emma sitting across from Warren Mitchell in his office at Caltech. She looked nervous but determined as she explained her findings, showing him calculations and simulation results that demonstrated the catalyst's fatal flaw. Mitchell's dismissive response was clear. This is pre-defense anxiety, Emma. The calculations are sound. You're seeing problems where none exist because you're overthinking things. Women in science often struggle with confidence issues. Emma's recorded voice was steady despite the patronizing response. Professor Mitchell, this isn't about confidence. The math is clear. Under industrial conditions, this catalyst will produce an unstable byproduct. The electron density variable in the tunneling equation doesn't account for pressure variations above 270 atmospheres, which would be standard in commercial implementation. Mitchell's irritation became visible. I've been doing this for 30 years, Ms. Carter. I think I know when a formula is stable. Focus on preparing your defense and leave the big picture concerns to those with the experience to evaluate them properly. The recording continued for another 10 minutes, with Mitchell becoming increasingly dismissive and Emma increasingly insistent. By the end, Mitchell was practically shooing her out of his office, promising to look over her concerns, but clearly having no intention of doing so. When the video ended, the room was silent. 2 weeks after this meeting, he published my research under his name, Emma said quietly, without the corrections I had identified. Michael's expression was stone cold, and he was willing to let Westbrook Energy implement the flawed catalyst, knowing it could kill people. Just like he let my father die, Emma whispered. Sarah reached over to squeeze Emma's hand, a gesture of silent support. Jackson was already updating their FBI contact with news of the new evidence. Michael stepped away from the desk, moving to the window with the controlled energy of a man ready for action. "We move tonight," he announced. "The FBI will meet us at Westbrook Energy headquarters at 8 p.m. They'll want statements from all of us." Emma nodded, relief and apprehension battling within her. After 5 years of silence, justice was finally within reach. "What about Lucy?" she asked. "Sarah has volunteered to stay with her here," Michael replied. "The property is secure." The decision made, they spent the next few hours preparing. Emma found herself working side by side with Michael, their different expertise complementing each other perfectly. He had a strategic mind that saw connections and implications she might have missed, while she provided the scientific rigor that gave their case its foundation. As evening approached, Emma went to find Lucy, who was in the kitchen helping the chef prepare cookies. Her daughter's face was smudged with flour, her expression one of pure concentration. "Mommy, we're making cookies for when you come back tonight. Mr. Westbrook said they're his favorite." Emma smiled, though her heart ached at the thought of leaving Lucy even briefly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. Listen, Mommy needs to go into the city with Mr. Westbrook tonight. Dr. Sarah will stay here with you." Lucy's face fell slightly. "Is it because of the bad people?" Sometimes Emma forgot how perceptive children could be. "Yes, partly. We're going to talk to people who can help us make things right. Like police officers." "Something like that," Emma agreed. "I'll be back before you wake up tomorrow morning, I promise." Lucy nodded solemnly. "Okay, Sarah said we can watch the stars tonight if it's clear. She knows all the constellations." "That sounds wonderful." Emma hugged her daughter tightly, inhaling the scent of cookie dough and childhood innocence. "Be good for Dr. Sarah, okay?" "I will." Lucy pulled back, her small face suddenly serious. "Mommy, are you being brave like Daddy was?" Emma's throat tightened. Lucy had been only 2 when David Carter died, too young to have real memories of him. But Emma had always kept his memory alive, telling Lucy stories of her grandfather's courage and integrity. "Yes, sweetheart, just like Daddy." The helicopter ride to Manhattan was tense and mostly silent. Emma watched the city lights grow larger beneath them, each glittering pinpoint, representing lives that might have been at risk had the flawed catalyst been implemented. "What if this doesn't work?" she finally asked, voicing the fear that had been growing inside her. "Mitchell has influence connections. He's respected in the scientific community." Michael studied her across the dimly lit cabin. "Do you know what my SEAL instructor told me during Hell Week?" Emma shook her head. "He said the only easy day was yesterday. It meant that challenges would keep coming, that the path forward would always be difficult." Michael leaned forward slightly. "But he also taught us that difficulty isn't the same as impossibility. Mitchell may have influence, but we have the truth. And truth has a way of prevailing when enough brave people stand behind it." The Westbrook Energy headquarters was eerily quiet when they arrived, most employees having gone home hours before. The FBI agents were waiting in Michael's office, Special Agent Diana Calloway and her partner Special Agent Marcus Chen. "Mr. Westbrook." "Dr. Carter." Agent Calloway's handshake was firm and professional. "We've reviewed the preliminary materials your security chief sent over. Impressive work." "We have the complete case file here," Michael said, handing over a secure thumb drive, "including the video recording of Professor Mitchell dismissing safety concerns about the catalyst." For the next hour, Emma and Michael walked the agents through the evidence they had compiled. Emma explained the technical aspects of the catalyst Flaw, while Michael detailed the corporate espionage angle involving Coleman and Helios Energy. "And you believe this connects to the death of David Carter at National Energy Laboratories 9 years ago?" Agent Calloway asked Emma. "The evidence suggests Mitchell buried my father's safety complaints about similar technology, yes," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the pain of discussing her father's death. Agent Calloway made notes, her expression giving nothing away. "That would fall under a different jurisdiction, but we can coordinate with the appropriate authorities to reopen the investigation." "What happens now?" Michael asked. "We'll bring Professor Mitchell in for questioning tomorrow morning," Agent Chen explained. "Given the evidence you've provided, especially the video recording, we have more than enough to proceed." After the agents left, Emma sank into a chair in Michael's office, suddenly exhausted. The emotional toll of the day had drained her completely. "It's really happening," she murmured. Michael poured 2 glasses of scotch from the decanter on his credenza, handing one to Emma. "Yes, it is." Before Emma could respond, Michael's phone rang. His expression darkened as he listened to the caller. "When are you certain? Lock down the building and call the FBI. We're on our way." He ended the call already on his feet. "Mitchell is here. He just entered the building using an old security code. Jackson says he's headed for the research floor. Emma's blood ran cold. The labs, why would he? Understanding dawned on them simultaneously. The evidence, Emma whispered. He's trying to destroy the research data that proves the catalyst is flawed. They moved quickly, taking the executive elevator down to the research floor. Jackson met them at the elevator bank, his expression grim. Security cameras show him entering Lab 3, he reported. That's where the catalyst testing has been happening. Has he seen us? Michael asked. No, he doesn't know we're in the building. Michael turned to Emma. You should wait here. We don't know what he's capable of. Emma shook her head firmly. I've been hiding from this man for 5 years. I'm done hiding. Michael studied her for a moment, then nodded. Stay behind me. They moved silently through the darkened research floor, guided by the subtle glow of emergency lighting. Through the glass walls of Lab 3, Emma could see a figure hunched over a computer terminal. Warren Mitchell, looking older and more desperate than she remembered, was furiously typing commands, presumably trying to access the research database. Michael gestured for Jackson to circle around to the second entrance, while he and Emma approached the main door. Taking a deep breath, Michael pushed it open. Looking for something, Professor Mitchell. Mitchell spun around, his face contorting with shock and then fury. Westbrook, what are you doing here? I own the building, Michael replied coolly. The better question is what you're doing breaking into my research facility after hours. Mitchell's eyes darted from Michael to Emma, widening in recognition. I should have known you'd be behind this. Emma stepped forward, her fear giving way to a calm resolve. Hello, Professor. It's been 5 years. You always were trouble. Mitchell spat, his face reddening. Never knowing your place, questioning your superiors. You mean questioning flawed research that could kill people? Emma's voice was steady, like the safety concerns my father raised before his accident at National Energy Laboratories. Mitchell's face paled. That's absurd. David Carter's death was an equipment malfunction. After you buried his safety complaints, Emma countered, just like you dismissed mine before stealing my research and publishing it with the same fatal flaw. You can't prove any of this, Mitchell snarled, though doubt flickered in his eyes. Actually, we can, Michael said, his tone conversational, but his eyes cold as steel. We have your emails with Coleman and Zhao. We have the video recording of you dismissing Emma's safety concerns. We have the lab test confirming the catalyst's fatal flaw. Mitchell's composure crumbled visibly. He seemed to age a decade in seconds, his shoulders slumping. Then with a sudden burst of desperation, he lunged for a nearby cabinet, yanking open a drawer. Stay back, he shouted, producing a small revolver and pointing it with a trembling hand. I'm not going to prison. Not at my age, not for this. Michael shifted subtly, positioning himself in front of Emma. Think about what you're doing, Mitchell. You've made poor decisions, but this would be your worst. Poor decisions. Mitchell laughed bitterly. You have no idea what it's like in academia. Publish or perish. Always chasing the next grant, the next breakthrough. When Carter showed me that formula, when I saw what it could do, I deserved recognition. I'd paid my dues for decades. So you stole it, Emma said quietly. And when my father raised safety concerns about similar technology, you buried those too. A man died, Professor Mitchell. My father died. That wasn't supposed to happen. Mitchell insisted, the gun wavering in his grasp. It was just bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. And what about the people who would have died when Westbrook implemented your flawed catalyst? Michael pressed. More bad luck. Mitchell's eyes darted frantically between them and the door where Jackson now stood blocking the exit. Coleman assured me the implementation would fail before it reached dangerous levels. The plan was for the stock to drop for Zhao to acquire Westbrook at a discount. No one was supposed to get hurt. Yet people would have died, Michael said with deadly quiet, all for money and prestige. The sound of sirens penetrated the building. Mitchell's face crumpled as he realized the futility of his situation. The gun lowered slightly. In that moment of hesitation, Michael moved with the swift precision of his military training. He crossed the space between them in 2 strides, disarming Mitchell with a smooth motion that left the older man gasping on his knees, the gun safely in Michael's possession. Warren Mitchell, you're under arrest, announced Agent Calloway from the doorway, weapon drawn. FBI, put your hands where I can see them. As the agents led Mitchell away in handcuffs, the once renowned professor appeared suddenly small. Diminished by the weight of his crimes, Emma watched him go, a complex mixture of emotions washing over her, relief, vindication, and an unexpected hint of pity for a brilliant mind corrupted by ambition. "You okay?" Michael asked quietly, coming to stand beside her. Emma nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "I think I will be, for the first time in a long time." 4 weeks later, Emma sat in Michael's office at Westbrook Energy, reviewing the final revisions to the Carter-Westbrook catalyst formula. The past month had been a whirlwind of developments. Warren Mitchell faced multiple federal charges, including corporate espionage, criminal negligence, and obstruction of justice. Richard Coleman had been apprehended in Geneva and extradited to face similar charges. Victor Zhao had resigned as CEO of Helios Energy amid the growing scandal, the company's stock plummeting as details of the attempted sabotage became public. Most significantly for Emma, the investigation into her father's death had been reopened with preliminary findings strongly suggesting criminal negligence on Mitchell's part. After 9 years, David Carter's reputation was being restored, his safety concerns vindicated. The simulation results are in. Dr. Jennifer Choi announced entering the office with a tablet. "Your modifications to the electron density variable are revolutionary. By accounting for quantum tunneling effects under variable pressure conditions, you've not only eliminated the instability, but improved efficiency by 30%. Emma studied the data, satisfaction warming her chest. The correction she had identified 5 years ago had been just the beginning. With Westbrook's resources at her disposal, she had completely redesigned the quantum tunneling equation, creating a catalyst that was both safer and more efficient than anyone had thought possible. "Dr. Patel wants to know when we can begin pilot testing," Choi continued. "Tell him 2 weeks, Emma replied. "I want one more round of stress testing under maximum pressure conditions." Choi nodded and departed, leaving Emma alone with Michael, who had been quietly observing from behind his desk. "You've transformed the research division in just a month," he remarked. "Choi told me morale has never been higher." Emma smiled. "They're brilliant scientists. They just needed direction and purpose. And a leader who understands both the science and the human element," Michael added. "Which brings me to this." He slid a folder across the desk to her. Inside was an employment contract for the position of Chief Technology Officer at Westbrook Energy, with a compensation package that made Emma's eyes widen. "This is substantial," she managed. "It's what the position is worth," Michael replied simply. "Particularly with your expertise. The board approved it unanimously after seeing the projection models for the new catalyst." Emma studied him across the desk. "And what about Lucy? This job would demand significant time commitments." "Read page 3, Michael suggested. Emma flipped to the specified page, finding an addendum about flexible working arrangements, on-site childcare facilities, and education benefits for dependents. Michael had thought of everything. "I don't know what to say," she admitted. "Say yes," he replied, a rare warmth in his eyes. "Westbrook Energy needs you. The clean energy sector needs you. And if I may be so bold, I've come to value your perspective both professionally and personally." 2 days later, Emma signed the contract, becoming the youngest CTO in Westbrook Energy's history. That same afternoon, she and Lucy moved into their new home, a sunlit house on the edge of the company campus, just 10 minutes from Michael's estate. Lucy thrived in her new school, her asthma improving in the cleaner air away from the city. She developed an even deeper interest in science, often spending afternoons in Emma's lab asking endless questions about molecules and energy. 6 months later, Mama stood in the control room of Westbrook Energy's newly constructed research facility. Through the reinforced glass wall, she could see the gleaming pilot-scale reactor where the corrected Carter-Westbrook catalyst was undergoing its final testing phase. "System pressure optimal," reported Dr. Choi. "Temperature stable, initiating catalytic sequence." On the large monitors above the control panels, data began streaming in real time. Pressure readings, temperature, metrics, energy input measurements, and finally the catalytic efficiency rating. The numbers climbed steadily, surpassing all projected benchmarks. The room fell silent as the final figure stabilized on screen: 78% efficiency. "That's impossible," whispered Dr. Patel, who had become one of Emma's strongest supporters. "The theoretical maximum was 65%. Emma smiled, a quiet pride warming her chest. "The math doesn't lie." Applause erupted throughout the control room. Years of work, of struggle, of loss and redemption culminated in this moment of scientific triumph. "Congratulations, Dr. Carter." Emma turned to find Michael standing in the doorway, his expression one of genuine admiration. In the months they had worked together, their relationship had evolved from professional respect to something deeper. A connection founded on shared values, complementary strengths, and mutual understanding of loss and redemption. "We did it," Emma replied, including him in the victory. 78% efficiency, stable across all test conditions. Your father would be proud, Michael said softly. Emma's throat tightened at the mention of her father. The investigation into his death had concluded, officially recognizing that his safety concerns had been valid and deliberately suppressed. His professional reputation had been restored posthumously, his contributions to catalytic chemistry acknowledged in the scientific community. There's someone here who wants to congratulate you. Michael continued, stepping aside to reveal Lucy standing behind him, her eyes wide with excitement. Mommy, did your special mixture work? Lucy asked, rushing forward to hug Emma. It did, sweetheart, Emma confirmed, lifting her daughter into her arms. Even better than we expected. Later that evening, after the celebrations had quieted and Lucy was tucked into bed, Emma sat on the porch of their new home, watching the stars emerge above the Connecticut forest. Michael joined her, offering a glass of champagne as he took the chair beside her. To changing the world, he toasted. One molecule at a time, Emma completed, clinking her glass against his. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the day's triumph settling into something more profound. I received the sentencing recommendation for Mitchell today, Michael said eventually. 20 years. Coleman facing 15. Zhao won't serve time, but Helios will pay substantial damages to Westbrook and to you as the original researcher. Emma nodded, a weight she had carried for years finally lifting completely. Justice, after all this time. Michael reached into his pocket, withdrawing the silver pocket watch she had seen once before. This has been in my family for generations, he explained. Emma accepted it carefully, feeling its weight in her palm. I want Lucy to have it, he said quietly, to remind her of where she comes from, of the courage that runs in her blood through both her grandfather and her mother. Emma's breath caught at the significance of the gesture. This wasn't just a gift. It was an acknowledgement of something deeper taking root between them, a family being forged from shared values and mutual respect. Michael, you don't need to say anything, he interrupted gently. Just promise you'll tell her the story someday. All of it. The wrong formula that brought us together. The truth that prevailed. Emma nodded, emotion tightening her throat. I promise. As they sat together under the stars, Emma thought about the unexpected journey that had brought her here. From academic promise to professional exile. From struggling single mother to respected research director. From lonely whistleblower to part of something larger than herself. The wrong formula had nearly destroyed them both. The right one, it seemed, had brought them together. And that, Emma realized as Michael's hand found hers in the gathering darkness, was the most elegant equation of all.